Well, how do you know if your identity is actually wrapped up in something? I started Wodapalooza, then I partnered, then I sold it. And there was, a time there where I was like, what? Like, this is not my identity. Like, it's just something I do. I told myself that, but yet my identity was in Wodapalooza. And so I've had to kind of reverse engineer this and like, well, what determines, what is an outward expression of how you are, how something's tied to your identity?
What's up, everyone? You're listening to the Do Hard Things podcast by Elite SRS. The purpose of this show is to share stories of hardship and victory as an encouragement for those in the middle of their own hard thing. Because we know hardship produces perseverance, which produces character, which ultimately produces hope. Today's guest is Guido Trinidad. Guido is the founder of the CrossFit competition Wodapalooza and Peak 360, a CrossFit gym in Miami, Florida. Guido talks about growing up without a positive fatherly influence and the impact of fathers on their children and the trajectory of their lives. I hope you enjoy the show, and please don't forget to subscribe. Now here's the conversation with Guido Trinidad. When you get asked, what do you do? What do you tell people?
What do I tell people? I do a lot of things, and I try to do them well. But I guess you could say, first and foremost, I'm a follower of Christ. I'm a husband. I'm a father, and then I identify as an entrepreneur, and I guess an athlete as well. I say I'm not competitive, but yet every single day that 3, 2, 1 go switch turns on and I become a competitor by default. So yeah, I lead a few organizations. I love starting things. I love coaching. I love all things fitness, faith, family. Yeah.
3 F's. So how, it sounded like that was probably a priority order of, the things you do. And business was not first, which isn't always the way people think about, who they are or what they do. Is that a fair statement that was do you have a priority list of the things in your life that are important?
Yeah, 100%. I would say, ironically is I've always said that they are the same as they are right now. I've always said, for the most part, like God is first, my family's second, my business comes third, my fitness comes fourth, what have you. But, it wasn't until, I don't know how many years ago, but that I actually had the striking reality confront me with like, hey, you're not actually living out the priorities that you say are your priorities. You actually have them out of order. And, usually that doesn't feel good when that happens because you kind of feel like you're a fraud and like you lack integrity. And, but that's what I believe, sometimes God uses to really just get us aligned with his will and what he wants us to do.
Yeah. I've heard that analogy, right. In the faith circles anyways, that it's like a school lunch tray. And, you've got those different segments on the tray and God fits into one of the segments and you're like, oh, he's the first segment. And then you've got the other ones filling up the rest of the tray. But the reality is God's supposed to be the tray holding everything else,
Yeah. Funny. I've never heard of that. I was wondering where you were going with it.
Yeah.
I was thinking like, yeah, I got it. It's funny. It's like, it's not that God is even first anymore. It's like God is everything,
Right.
like, as crazy as that might sound, but like if I try to separate God from my business or my family or my athletic endeavors and like add him to it, like, oh, let me put a little hot sauce on it because it's going to make it more special, sprinkle some Jesus on it because then I'll be blessed in this endeavor. It's like, you got it all wrong, man.
Right.
It's all a means to an end and he is the end. And it takes years to figure that out. So
Right. And I'm sure it's one of those things where the pendulum swings, right? Like come over here and you're like, oh, God's not a part of this pursuit. Swing it back. Oh, I kind of neglected this pursuit. I'm not doing it well anymore. Swing it. And it's just got to settle into the middle at some point where, there's that balance of like what God's called you to do and how do you pursue it well, but at the same time, not have it exceed him.
Yeah. There's a verse that reads, I believe it's Colossians 3:23. It says, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as if working for the Lord, not for man. And, I've always been a very like driven individual and, very goal oriented. And so that verse I interpreted as, whatever you do, do it with all your heart. Like that, with all your heart, very spoke to me. It was affirming. It was like, yeah, that's who you are. You're passionate, all your heart. Like you're doing the right thing. But I always I would attack the things that I was doing as if that was my purpose, was the thing that I was doing. And it was one day in preparation probably to speak to a group, and I was reading the scripture, and God just really like made this word, the first word, whatever, pop out. It was like literally jumped out of the Bible and right in front of my face. And it was like, I basically interpreted God saying like, I don't really care what you do, whatever you do.
Yeah. Right.
It's about the intention that you're doing it with.
Right.
So yeah, I think like as it relates to the pendulum that you're talking about, really just like whatever it is that I'm doing, whether it be parenting or working out, like I'm still going to be doing the same things. Is it being led by my flesh and my pride and to serve myself, or is it really done, unto the Lord? So that's like it's a daily battle. So as much as I have come to the realization of what my priorities are and how to actually live them out, I still struggle to actually keep them in order because, the flesh is weak.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's another similar to that, like whatever you do, the verse for me has always been Isaiah 30:21. I think that I get the reference mixed up a little bit, but something like that. And it's whether you turn to the left or to the right, you'll hear a small voice saying, this is the way, walk in it. And it's like, it's not about which way you go, right? You could go left or you could go right at this decision point, but are you walking with the Lord in whatever way you go, And it just takes so much of the pressure off of like, am I doing the right things? Am I in the will of the Lord? It's like, no, it's just a relationship every day.
Yeah.
How are you walking with him? This isn't on my, my little script here, but it's been a question I've just been asking people in general because I found a lot of fruit from it. What do you like? Tell me what you know about God, like as maybe as a father or as just like in a relationship. And I won't lead it any more than that because I don't like to.
What do I know about God? That is so good. Well, I know what he's done for me. That's for sure. Jeez.
Preach.
Trying to make me cry right here on this podcast.
Well, that'd be fun, actually. That means it's real.
Man, what do I know about God? He's merciful. He's good. Even when we don't realize that he's good, he's always working. He's always faithful. He's got a plan. He's in control. Although he's not controlling me, but he is in control.
Yeah.
He allows us to make, free will choices. Jesus, like the creator of all things, he's patient, he's kind, he's gentle. He is the truth.
Yeah.
He's everything that we are seeking is found in him. And the fact that he would want to have a relationship, like an intimate relationship with us, and that he wired us with all these little chips in us to show us that he is real. First of all, how can we possibly look, I think we're so blind and so distracted by our lives sometimes, that we are like, proof of God is everywhere, like everywhere. All we got to do is look at a tree. Like there's no explanation, like who created that? Like,
Right.
like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so I'm just in awe. Like I have come to a place in my walk with the Lord that I want to be in awe of him every day.
Yeah.
And I used to try to just like carve out time for God. It's like I want my whole entire life to be absorbed by him. Like I don't want to enter in a conversation and not have it be led by him and his spirit. I want my way of thinking to be reshaped by him. So what do I know of God? I mean, there's a lot that I know, and there's probably so much that I don't know. I know that he is, I mean, we are a speck of sand in comparison to, you know, the planet and the galaxy, in comparison to everything that he is. Like he's so enormous. And I know that that he loves us, that he has compassion for us. I know that he has a plan for us. Yeah. I know that he has designed, you know, us to need him, to want him, and that he allows struggles in our life. He allows them to happen on purpose to draw us near to him. That what people would think that we would be set up for failure. It's like, imagine like that you put like your kid in a boxing ring with like, I don't know, Mike Tyson. You're like,
Sure.
You're setting the kid up for failure.
Right.
You know, like, but no, if the kid was aware that he actually has someone in his corner that can actually defeat Mike Tyson, then you're just setting up the kid to actually come to know, to the realization that he's not meant to fight this fight alone, that he needs his guy in his corner, which is his God.
Yeah.
And I think that God like is like, we fight these battles every day, that we try to like, you know, be the best version of ourselves and be the most confident version of ourselves. And we muster up everything that we have, you know, in us, which even comes from him, but like, and try and see it as like separate from him. Whereas like the minute that we can confess that we're weak, that we don't know and we don't have the right answer, but that we want to be led by him, that he could then lead, and that would come to a place of more peace, and that we don't always have to get it right.
Right.
And I think he wants us to truly live in joy regardless of the circumstance. Imagine.
Yeah.
Like he wants us to, I know that God wants us to love the way that he loves. Like what is a better description of love? I think it's crazy because, you know, we know that we actually in our sin, like put the nails on the cross, but that's like a concept, right? So we're so physical beings that like, no, the guys who were there that put the nails on him, those are the ones that really hung him. Well, let's just say for a second that that's true, because we're thinking not in a spiritual context, but in a physical world context. Even then, he said, and he looked down on them and said, God, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Like that is just mind-boggling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that I don't know a lot, but what I do know has just changed the way that I see everything in life and the way that I see myself, and has led me to a place of peace, of joy, and not a perfect life by any means, far from perfect life, and probably more aware of my imperfections now than I was then, when I wasn't truly following him.
So looking at you kind of, I think, alluded to a few different parts of your life at this point, but I'm curious, like if you were going to summarize your life to this point, what 3 words would you use? 3 may not be enough, but I'm going to limit you to 3. What 3 words would you use to describe your life to this point?
I would say redeemed. Let's change that word for transformed.
Okay. It's up to you.
Yeah, I'll say transformed. I'll say passion. Um, I would say on mission. I'm transformed. I came into this world and had the experiences that I had that I didn't ask for.
Sure.
I was born into them, whether, for better or for worse. And some of the things God used to develop me and develop, characteristics that would allow me to, connect with people, be in places where I could, leverage and be great at sports and, do things that have been a blessing to me and to other people's lives. And then at the same time, these experiences have also, some of them that I have chosen have led me to really dark places that have separated me from God, that have created pain in other people's lives and despair in my own life and confusion in my own life for what life was, what in life was really going to bring me joy and peace.
Right.
And so he's transformed the way that I see life, the way that I perceive what success is really all about, the way that I see myself, my own value, more clarity on my, reasons why I behave the way that I behaved, and sometimes the way that I still behave the way that I behave. And yeah, he's just transformed me. Like, I'm a different person. I'm in the same skin, the same blood runs through my veins, but I'm literally a different person. And I believe that I can look back almost even a month ago and be like, God has changed me. You're still doing your work in me. Thank you so much. Like, I even if I'm a 1% different, I want to continue to be more like you. And I'm so far from that. So I'm transformed, even in my desire. Like, that's probably the thing that I'm most thankful for. There's a lot, it's hard to say the most, but the thing that I'm constantly reminded is, like, I'm just thankful that I even have the desire to pursue you the way that I do. Because there was a time where I wanted it, but I really wasn't thirsty, desperate for God. And it always felt like a chore. And I feel like God has given me the ability to truly love him.
That's awesome.
So transformed and being transforming. And I say passion is because I think that's just a way that he wired me. He's a very passionate person. And again, unchecked and with, the ego in the way, it could be self-serving. But most of the time, I believe that it comes from a place of just I really appreciate the little things in life. And so it drives me to want to share it. It drives me to be excited about it. It brings this zest about life. Like, when God talks about abundance, I envision God came to give life and to give it, in full. But if I was vanilla, I am the most, God created me to be a very flavor-filled vanilla, I don't need, and I'm learning to be content with the most basic things in life and make the most out of them. And I think that's God's doing, because I've taken that desire for that innate ability to be passionate, but I always felt like I needed more.
Yeah.
Right. I've succumbed to a life that felt like I needed to fill it with activities for it to be, because I was so passion driven, when it's God, Guido, do you not realize that just you sitting in a room with white walls, I could fill you with, blow your mind with wonder and awe of me. And I'm like, okay, let's do that. That brings about more peace, in my life. And I feel like I always have to be creating this situation to he is everywhere. And anyways, I'm just really passionate person, that he wired me that way. And I'm grateful for that. And I forget, what was the last one I said? Do you remember?
Dude, what did you say? Transformed, passionate. You get to come up with a new one now. You get 4.
Yeah, I would say, I would have to say leader, and man, I've always identified myself as a leader. And that doesn't mean that I've been a good one though.
Sure. Yeah.
That doesn't mean that, and I've always interpreted and I put this pressure on myself that like, because I had some natural leadership capabilities, that like I had to have it all figured out. And that has, created this like almost imposter syndrome sometimes when I really don't know things and I don't go to people for help because I'm a leader. Or like what, like God has totally transformed my perspective of leadership as well. Like actually real good leaders are humble and they admit when they're wrong. A leader is multifaceted in its abilities, capabilities, and even in its weaknesses. I just know that I believe we were all created to lead. All of us were created to lead, but we were created as followers first. I work with guys and help them transform their health and fitness. But I always start from the inside out. And so we start from a place of identity. So we start, basically like, hey, what are your core identities? And the first one, that I always have told myself is you're a leader. But what God has said, like, in order to be a great leader, you have to be a better follower. My favorite book, right, obviously is the Bible, but there's a variety of different, iterations of them, not iterations in the sense that they're different, but like that have different commentary on them. And John Maxwell is one of the leaders that I very much look up to and admire. And he actually has a Bible. It's the John Maxwell Bible. And it's, I believe it's NIV. Or what I love most about it is because I believe that this is a role or an identity that God has called me to step into many times in my life. And in my day-to-day is that what they've done with the Bible is that they add commentary to scripture. And they just kind of shine light in scripture and be like, oh, look, this is how these leadership qualities were displayed. And these leadership qualities were just like expressed here. And it's like, I would have never seen that had it not been for someone who is more wise, more theologically, knowledgeable than I am. And maybe just obviously God just, giving them the perspective that they had for me to be able to grab something that is so important to me to continue to align myself with, but now have it be more applicable with something that I feel very called to do in my day-to-day life. So I would say leadership is definitely one of those words that I would comment in my life.
Found yourself in that role throughout your life. So thinking about that transformed piece, going back to that word, it really represents well in one word, kind of like the purpose of this podcast, of what we're trying to do as a company and our like, I guess, mission statement, quote unquote, which says, we exist to equip and encourage people to do hard things so that they grow stronger, right? Like through that hard thing, there's growth and that transformation that comes as a result. So leveraging that idea, like, what is the hardest thing in your life that you wouldn't take back?
You know what? So like in the moment, I probably didn't realize how hard it was. Probably rocked me and I didn't even know it, was just my childhood growing up without a dad that was actually like a solid man. I knew at a pretty young age that like I didn't have the dad that I wanted to have, and that and I really believe that right away, like I started to develop aspirations to be a father and to be an amazing father. And when I say amazing, let me replace that word with a devoted father. I can't control fully my performance and there is no real leaderboard for it. So I don't know what an amazing father looks like, but I know what a devoted father looks like. I know what a present father looks like. I know what a truly committed, loving, godly father looks like. And even that in a husband, like everything that he wasn't, I wanted to be. And everything that he was, I didn't want to be. So, God really just used that to mold me into the person that I am today, and that he wants to continue to have me be. So although it was painful in that moment, and it was probably really hard for me as a kid to grow up with the insecurities and try to, prove myself to everyone, because I didn't have the love of a father near, and developed anger issues and, all the variety of different struggles that I went through. I wouldn't trade them, even though they created a lot of heartache for a lot of people, not just myself. I wouldn't trade those, because I really just believe that it was part of God's plan. And then I could also speak into other people's lives. It's given me a passion to love, like, the youth, I have a desire, and I think I connect well with younger people. I'm kind of a kid at heart, but I also can relate with some of the struggles that a lot of kids go through without, really present, strong father figures.
Right. I got two questions off of that. I think the first one is, what was the thing that was the most, like, that you were lacking the most in that relationship from your dad? And then I think this is related. Question two is, what do you think the most valuable gift or the most valuable responsibility is from a father to their child? So now that you are a father, right? What is that thing that is most valuable as a dad for your kids?
Yeah.
So hopefully those two questions make
sense. I think they might lead to the same answer, maybe not. Let me start with the first one. I think really what I just lacked was a good model.
Yeah.
What does it look like? What does it look like to honor your wife? What does it look like to be faithful? What does it look like to be gentle? What does it look like to be devoted? What does it look like to, put your family first? Like, what do those things look like? I just didn't have an example. Yeah. And so now I'm left with looking out to the rest of the world to show me what that looks like. And well, good luck with that, because the world is really confused. So I just didn't have a good model of what that looked like. And I mean, man, by the grace of God, having some men in my life that affirmed me and led me and poured into me, specifically through sports, and then in youth group as well. And really, I think sometimes you just need like a man's, like, it's not sometimes, like, we all do. We're wired to have specific needs from a man and specific needs from a woman. And just, I would say just a man's affirmation.
Yeah.
Whether it be correction, whether it be love, whether it be, presence, I just lack all of the above. So I think to kind of tackle the next question, and what is it that I feel like as a father, my kids need most? Is that kind of?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Well, I'm still trying to figure that out. But I would say, again, is just a good model, because, you could, I think two things. One is, to be present, and quality time is more important than quantity of time, because you could be a stay-at-home dad who is like distracted by the TV, on their phone, right, like just like not really there, not like trying to connect with the kid, like to be present. Yeah. And be like, all in. And then the second one is to, again, to be that model, right? It's so cliche, but our actions speak louder than our words. And, if I'm telling my kid to not yell, but then I'm yelling at my wife, then really, what does it matter? Right. What I tell them and the things that I try to teach them, and I'm not going to, and in that comes with, okay, when you do fail, you say, well, now you model humility and saying, well, listen, like, I know I asked you not to yell, and I just yelled, and I want to apologize to you because, I'm trying and I want to be better. And so when I ask you not to yell, I'm asking myself not to yell too. Yeah. Reminding myself, so just not upholding a standard that you cannot hold yourself, and just really leading and modeling humility and and all the things that God is calling us to model, is being, humble, but also truthful and bold when we need to be.
Yeah. And so it sounds like too, you're saying like the father's role isn't so like there's that affirmation, but that a lot of that like teaching and affirmation and value as a father just comes from the way that you live your life, like the present modeling, which is different than like, hey, son, or hey, daughter, I'm going to sit you down. I'm going to teach you what you need to know, and just try to download all life lessons into them versus just modeling it through the way you live, which takes time and is kind of like the long game, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so hard because, maybe they don't see it right there in that moment. And there are going to be those times where you have to have those conversations, but that's not really where the change happens. It's like, I would say, and this is just my analogy, not sure if this is, biblical or not, but let's just say that the conversations are planting seeds, and then your actions are what waters and shines sunlight on those seeds.
Yeah.
You need to have the conversations, because otherwise we become doers of the word when we hear the word. We need to hear the word. We need to hear the truth. But then now we need to see you live it out.
The relationship with my dad was a super impactful thing as well. And so like the only things that make me cry in movies are like those parent dad specific relationships with kids, where they like really highlight those. I don't want to derail our conversation too hard on.
Oh, this is good. I'm tempted to put you on the spot and now start asking you some dad questions. Like what did you learn from your dad? That is.
Yeah. I think my dad, like the work ethic was modeled for me, of like how to work hard and not just kind of like sit on your laurels. And like when he would come home from work, it wasn't just put your feet up and watch TV. It was engaged with the kids or helping my mom, around the house. And it wasn't always lived out perfectly, but that work ethic was present. And then faithfulness, like he's just a really faithful, steady, consistent person. And I think I took that for granted for a long time, but that's not everybody's that way. And to like mean what you say and then follow through on those things and then just be that way all the time, where you can trust that that's they're going to have this reaction in this situation. That's a really like peaceful place to be, because, like I messed up and I know I'm getting this reaction from my dad, or, I'm walking this way, and so he's going to treat me in this way. Like it was just consistent. On the flip side, there was always just a lack of emotional connection. He was raised that way. And so showing emotion was never something that was natural for him. And I think for me, I was blessed with a wife who came from the complete opposite of that, where all the emotions were on the table all the time. And being able to recognize the value of some vulnerability in showing emotion and like openness as a father, where to your point, like being able to be repentant and apologize and even be sad and model those things and like demonstrate that they're okay to have those emotions for my kids are that's something I've learned that wasn't modeled well by my father, like my dad, and was lacking. Like I needed that from him.
Yeah.
And didn't get it, and I like some of the most meaningful moments with my dad were the most emotional moments when I was growing up, right? Like those pivotal memories, and they were just few and far between. Those are the first things that come to mind.
That's good. That's good. Thank you for sharing, man.
Yeah.
Inspiring.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. Appreciate and love my dad, and very thankful that I had the dad I had. So you hit on, I'm going to get back into our do hard things conversation a little bit, but you hit on how you grew as a result of, having a difficult childhood and a father, wanting to be what he wasn't and those types of things. But I'm curious, like maybe talk about how that difficult season of life as a child led you to be, or maybe it didn't, maybe it had nothing to do with it, but how did it lead you to be passionate or an entrepreneur or a leader And if it didn't have any influence, that's okay. But I'm curious, like these are the things that define you or you've described yourself as pursuing. Did that have an impact on those?
Yeah, I'm not sure, right? It's kind of hard to tell, like, is the reason why I, developed some of these, personality traits, so to speak. Like, is that because, this 1+1 = 3, right? Like,
right.
Or was I just wired and bound to be that way regardless? So I don't know. I would say that I think from just my own self, an evaluation and analyzing my own behavior is that I was probably trying to get validation from a lot of people because I wasn't getting it from my dad, even though my mom gave it. But again, like, I gave us a father and a mother for a reason. We needed it. And the reason why I look back on that and I believe that is to be true is because in school, I had mainly female teachers, and I got really good grades because I was, just again, like trying to be the best and probably from a place of proving myself and my worth. But I always acted up and I had like really bad conduct. And I think I didn't respect women all that much, and them as authority figures. But with football, I was never the guy in trouble.
Right.
I was never the guy in trouble. I was always, and I wasn't the brown nose. I was just the hardest worker probably on the team, and was probably the coach's favorite player for the most part, almost all and every team I've been on, because I always was the guy, that was first to practice, last in practice, working the hardest, was the coach on the field. Like, not, again, I'm not bragging on myself, but I just look and reflect on like, man, like I really was everything that the coach would want in a player in terms of, a solid leader.
Yeah.
I look back and like, man, why was I like that in that area of my life, but I wasn't like that in others? And I'm led to believe that I just really wanted those coaches to love me.
Yeah.
I wanted them to like me. So I think that was great because then that's developed into confidence, and like, okay, like I'm good at this. I am, worthy. I can lead people. If I work hard, I get certain things. I get respect from other people, which then, you walk into, then you carry that confidence into other spaces. And like, I can start a business and I can, speak in front of public and talk to people. And so it's, even though some of the behavior may have stemmed from a place of insecurity, but God works all things for the good of those who love him. So I believe that he started to work all those things out, for the good of myself and those around me.
Yeah. Doesn't it just make you want to like get to heaven and be able to like see how it all connected? It's like, I let this happen for this reason for you, but then for these 20 other people in some way, shape, or form because of all the spider web connections.
Oh, for sure. And it's crazy because we could even say that those experiences are still impacting lives, because I mean, just this conversation right here, we wouldn't be having had I not gone through that.
Right.
And that not only is impacting, your life, but those who are listening, and then those that are listening can relay it. Like, yeah, it's just wild how God really can be in all things and work all things out.
All right. Well, so for sake of time, I'm going to just hit you with one more question.
Cool.
And that's for somebody who's in the middle of like their own hard thing, and it may be similar to what you've been through, but it could be totally different. What advice would you have for somebody in the middle of a difficult season?
What advice? Man, it's hard to give any advice without really leaving them with a tool. And that tool for me, and that tool for me really is just like, there is no amount of self-help that is going to get you out of your situation. Maybe in that moment it does, but we'll continue to find ourselves struggling with the same thing over and over again. And really, I don't know what percentage of your listeners, are believers and followers of Christ and what are not. But I would be remiss to give any advice and leave out what has been my tool, not for helping me and do hard things, but for helping me realize that like I cannot actually do the hard thing without him.
Yeah.
And it's, man, just admit that you can't do the hard thing without help from the one who created you.
That's good advice.
I read recently somewhere about a story about a kid who, had a parent, and it reminds me of my 3-year-old, because she's at that stage where she wants to do everything by herself. And she just doesn't fully comprehend yet that she cannot do certain things by herself. There's certain things that I need to teach her and help her and teach her how to do it. And then eventually she'll be able to do it by herself. But there's certain things that she just, at this stage in her life, she just cannot do by herself. And she just becomes frustrated. So the father, is like, she wants to tie her shoes. She can't tie her shoes, but she doesn't want the help. So the father steps back and actually lets her fail.
Yeah.
Because either that or he's going to fight her and control her. And now you create an insecure kid. But if you when God allows us to fail and realize that this hard thing we cannot do by ourselves, and that we actually need his help, and it's in the surrendering to him that he will then come and say, it's okay.
Right.
I gave you this hard thing so that you can lean on me, because I created you to need me.
Yeah.
And it's in that, and then there's joy there, because it's like, oh God, here I am all along trying to figure this out myself, when really I just need to like let go and let you lead the way, and be less concerned with the outcome and how well the shoe was tied and what are people going to think about my shoes and how they're tied. And it's like, it's all good. Like, he's got this.
Right. Yeah. There's like the word you're describing almost is like, in the midst of the struggle, there's a rest. Like, all back to the analogy at the beginning, right? Like, you're fighting Mike Tyson in the ring, but God's in your corner.
Yeah. And there's joy there. There's peace there. There's freedom there. I would say that that's been my biggest struggle in life, has been this striver mentality of like, I have to accomplish and do more. And that's who I am. And that's what I'm wired to be, is this create, achieve. And, the weight that has been taken off of my shoulders and the peace that I have internally is like, man, I am designed to work, but not for my own, elevation, so to speak, but to do it as an expression of gratitude for him and what he's done for me. Yeah. And that I don't have to, I'm not measured by the work that I do and how I perform.
Yeah. It's super comforting, right? It takes all that performance mentality out of the picture, and it lets you just be,
Yeah. Which is crazy, because as a competitor, as an athlete, as a leader, like, it's just ingrained into our mindset that, like, performance is, and our ability to perform, it basically is a direct correlation to your value.
Yeah.
And what I've been, hearing God saying is like, it's the heart of that you show up to the performance with that determines your value.
Right. That's good.
Not where you end up.
Yeah. I was a college basketball player, and then I helped lead a student athlete ministry for a few years. And that was always the conversation, is like, what's your identity in, and how are you perceiving your worth and your value? Is it in what your performances on the court and the team and success in sports, or is it in the classroom? But it was always tied to performance for somebody who's competing at a high level like that. And that's exhausting, because your performance is fickle, like, even for the best of the best.
For sure.
So,
and I think that, and like what was hard for me though, like as often as that was shown to me, I was like, well, how do you know if your identity is actually wrapped up in something? So my example was Wodapalooza. Like I started Wodapalooza, then I partnered, then I sold it. And there was, a time there where I was like, what? Like, this is not my identity. Like, it's just something I do.
Yeah.
I told myself that, but yet my identity was in Wodapalooza. And so I've had to kind of reverse engineer this and like, well, what determines, what is an outward expression of how you are, how something's tied to your identity? And really it's, again, this is revelation that I believe God has shared with me, is the fulfillment of identity is lied in the restfulness or lack thereof of your heart. Do you have joy? Do you have peace? Is when you look at a leaderboard and you see yourself in 4,000th place, does that give you anxiety? Does that make you sad? Does that make you depressed? Does it make you disappointed? If so, you're finding your identity in that. And the opposite is true too. Does it make you ultra proud? Does it make you feel amazing? I had a great day because I crushed the workout and beat everybody and I ended up first. Your identity is in that as well. So in the high and in the low, it's having this constant joy that no matter where I end up, I have joy and I have peace regardless if I won or lost.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give the same effort every single time. But where I end up on the leaderboard is not going to dictate the peace in my heart and the joy that I have.
Yeah, that's really good. I think about my own self, right? Because my identity was in basketball for a long time and it still creeps in. It's easy for me to, like, when I have a bad day playing basketball, be upset and be frustrated. And it's like, probably because my identity as a good basketball player still lies in there. Even though I'm just a pickup basketball player who's definitely on the downhill. So probably fair for me to admit that more often.
It's all good, man. We're all going that way. This body is decaying day by day. We're just trying to slow down the process.
Or deny it, right? So
yeah.
Well, Guido, man, thank you for taking some time to sit down and have a conversation. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for having me. It's been really cool. It's been an honor.
Thanks for listening to the Do Hard Things podcast by Elite SRS. We hope you're encouraged today and have a newfound hope to persevere. Be sure to subscribe for more great episodes and conversations. And if you ever want to watch an episode, check out our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Elite SRS. Have a blessed day.